why you shouldn't invest your money in France. France is heading towards a full-blown sovereign debt crisis. French government debt has piled up to 3.3 trillion euros. That's 116% of France's economic output. And now the French government has a real problem, especially given its high spending, to get out from under this debt. More than 2 years ago, we at Finanztipp already anticipated this scenario. That's when France lost its top ratings at the relevant rating agencies. And back then, we already said, don't put any more money in French banks. For example, at Consorsbank or Crédit Agricole. For instance, not in overnight or fixed-term deposit accounts anymore. At the time, we were even ridiculed a bit for this. Why were we being so strict, for example? Well, because it's about safely invested money. For example, overnight deposit accounts. And you just don't want to take any risks there. And in the current situation, probably everyone would understand that. And by the way, the French Deposit Guarantee Scheme is also responsible for the settlement accounts of Consorsbank's securities accounts and in part for those of Trade Republic. That's why we advise you not to keep large amounts of money for extended periods in the settlement accounts, not the securities accounts, but the settlement accounts of Consorsbank and also Trade Republic, just to be on the safe side. With Trade Republic, it's best to check exactly where your settlement account is located. Particularly clever minds will now say, hey, French government bonds, they're really interesting. They offer really high interest rates. That's right. France now sometimes has to pay higher interest rates than Greece. And that's an indication of how the market assesses the risk. Namely, that the French state is currently indeed something of a risk case. In other words, yes, if you want to buy French government bonds, you can do that. But be aware that if you're already getting such high interest rates, it's also a risky investment. In other words, there is a certain risk that France might not repay its debts. Yes? So where should you put your money if not in France? Good and secure savings accounts can best be found using the Finanztipp savings account comparison. And you'll notice that French banks are not recommended there.